Wait, you have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV. Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor. On this stormy summer day, I do love a summer storm, like lightning, and it's always kind of, I don't know. I like storms generally as long as no one is injured, but that's a whole different conversation. I'm sure there's a podcast about people who enjoy storms and they just review different storms. Incidentally, this is totally unrelated, but on YouTube the other day, I found a guy whose whole channel is just him riding different elevators and like from his POV. So you never see the guy. And it's just like specific elevators, makes and models. It's like train spotting, but for elevators. Anyway, it made me feel better about my obsessions. And I don't want to disparage you. If you like elevators, that is your business. I'm not a big fan. I've been trapped in them before and it's not fun. Anyway, something that is fun is this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor. My guest this week is actor Anna La Madrid. Anna's great. I had a great time talking to her. She runs a pretty amazing school out in Los Angeles called Put Me on Self-Tape, which is a self-tape audition coaching studio. And you need that more than ever. I know a lot of people have been struggling with self-tapes, especially my comedy friends. So she is someone who can help you with that. Her website is anna-lamadrid.com, but I'll put up links to that everywhere. She works a lot with Michelle Bossy, who was my guest previously, who is also great. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, go back and listen to that. But this was a great chat. And again, she grew up, she grew up in the United States, but until she was 8, we talk about that here. But I'm always fascinated to hear what stuff people watched when they grew up, either partially or completely in different countries. So it's always fascinating to me. So we talk about that a bit here, but it's a fun episode. So I think you will enjoy it. Speaking of enjoying things, again, I cannot thank you guys enough for everyone who gives to the Patreon, patreon.com/TV Guidance Counselor. It is a massive help. I appreciate it so much. Or if you go and you buy t-shirts on the TV Guidance Counselor TeePublic or my Ken FW Reed, or I think it's Ken Reed, TeePublic, it is a huge help as well, and it all helps to fund the show. If you have guests you would like me to try to get on the show, please email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com. Great feedback on the Peppermint Show, by the way. She is great, and I expected good feedback. That is everything. I think we've done all the business, got it out of the way, so now it's time for the fun stuff. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy for this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Anna La Madrid.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Live via satellite from Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Anna La Madrid, how are you?
I'm doing great. Trying to stay cool in my house right now.
Yeah, it's like an unusually hot Los Angeles heat wave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had that here. It was, Boston in the beginning of summer, it shouldn't be that hot, and it was like over 100 degrees here, and there were just like generations of families that we lost forever. Like it retroactively just evaporated their bloodlines.
Yeah, but climate change isn't real though.
It's true. Did you grow up on the East Coast though, right?
I did. I grew up in many different places, but mostly on the East Coast. So I was born in Venezuela. We lived in New Jersey for a while. Then I moved to North Carolina. Then I went back to New Jersey, Atlanta, New York, Seattle, LA.
Oh, wow. So you got, except for the middle. You got everything.
I got it all. I used to say coffee. I used to say y'all.
Oh, wow.
It was kind of all over the place.
So you picked up regional things from every single place you lived.
Yeah.
Were you a really young kid when you moved from Venezuela, or were you?
Yeah, I came to the U.S. when I was 8.
Okay. So you still remember stuff from Venezuela, though? You weren't?
I do. I remember some stuff, but TV, I was a latchkey kid. So I learned English watching TV. I was entertained, and it was my babysitter growing up. So it's funny. They used to call me like the human TV guide when I was younger, because they would be like, what's on TV? And I'm like, I know.
Yes. So you guys got the actual TV guide. You purchased it.
I would just know because I watched TV so much.
Right.
I remember seeing them at Friends friends' houses.
Would you grab one and be like, oh, I need to read this? It's like a treat at their house. Like,
I would
excuse me.
definitely like scroll through it and maybe try to like plan ahead. But yeah, these were considered luxury items in my home. So like we had to struggle to get like the Trix cereal. We always just got cornflakes. So yeah, I would never ask my mom to buy a TV guide.
So I was also a latchkey kid and watched just ridiculous, inhumanly inappropriate hours of television, but I didn't even have the benefit of saying that I learned another language from it, as I barely spoke English as a child and didn't have another language. I always wonder, because it's a story I hear from a lot of kids I know who are immigrants or the children of immigrants to the United States. They learn exactly that. They learn it from television, and depending on what they watched, they will pick up some strange phrases or even weird accents, and people will be like, where did you hear that? Did you have anything like that?
No, I feel for me, it's been really interesting. Like one of my favorite things to do now is to watch movies or shows from like the 80s and 90s and be like, what did I not understand? And does it hold up? You know, because there was just so many jokes that went over my head because I just didn't have the capacity for language. So it's kind of crazy that way. But, you know, it helped me accelerate learning English. So usually when you are an immigrant, you get placed in ESL classes, which is English as a second language. And they usually ask kids to be there for 2 to 3 years. But after a year, I was put into the regular school classes because I was already fluent.
Oh, that's amazing.
TV I watched.
Is there, I have side story. I was in ESL because
not because
so the weirdest thing was we had no money. And so I had to get bused to school, and the city I lived in, there was only 3 of us that needed to be bused. And the other 2 were these sisters who were Chinese immigrants. And so they had to go early to do ESL before school. And so I had to go sit in their ESL class.
That's kind of cool.
Like 5. I don't know what was going on. I was like, what are we doing? So it's very strange. Are there any of those things you've revisited that either surprised you at how much better they were than you remembered, or how much worse they were than you remembered?
I literally this weekend, I watched back to back. I went to HBO Max and I watched Short Circuit and then Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And I missed a lot of the plot from Short Circuit. You know, as a kid, I was just like, ooh, cool, talking robot, you know, the brown face was definitely over my head.
Yep. Same.
But then I was like, oh, technically the script, when you hear him talk about disassemble and the commands, it made sense. You know, like as an adult, I'm like, that tracks. But the sexism was like not cute.
Oh yeah, Ali Sheedy is not treated well in that film.
Not at all. But Pee-wee's held up.
Oh, it's so good.
Such an incredible clown that, you know, I'm an actor now, but back then it was just so colorful and he was so big. But oh my God, the rhythms that he does, the visual gags, it's just so full. And I'm like, this guy was a master at this, you know? The story of how he started Pee-wee is amazing too, where he didn't get SNL in 1979 and was so mad about it that he was like, I'm going to do my own show. Hey, go after you. And so he started doing that show live at the Roxy basically for a couple of years and then got the movie deal. But it's such an amazing movie. It is so weird. And because it's retro, it also feels totally out of time and timeless. Like it's hard to tell when it's from. It is. Yeah.
Which is great. That movie makes me laugh every time I watch it, which is many times. And it's amazing. And, you know, Phil Hartman wrote on it and Cassandra Peterson.
Like masters.
Yeah. Just amazing stuff. So we did 95 here. So we got September 30th to October 6th, 1995. You asked for this year specifically. Was there a reason that this year was the one that you were like, got to do 95?
I did, because I was in high school and what I realized was that I stopped watching TV in high school.
You didn't need to learn anything anymore.
Because I was scrolling through that. I was like, I've never watched this show. I've never heard of this show. But it's like, where was I? Probably in cheerleading practice and doing all that stuff. But it was so interesting to go back and see how much I wasn't watching TV.
Yeah, I was still watching a ton in high school when I probably should have been doing stuff that was more social. So this year I was still pretty on board. 95. Yeah, there's like 95, 96. I was in high school and in a touring punk rock band.
Oh, cool.
And yet still somehow watched a ridiculous amount of television instead of being like, yeah, I was like, no, I gotta go home and watch this show. But I remembered a lot in 95 as well, especially late night stuff. And it sounds like your sort of programming sweet spot was like that after school before dinner time frame. Yep. So like what, 3 to 7 kind of usually?
Kind of, yeah.
A lot of Rerun City. A lot of stuff there, especially in Jersey. There's probably a lot of like Taxi,
Facts of Life,
Who's the Boss, Benson,
Growing Pains, Mr.
Yep.
Belvedere.
Yes, yep. Weirdly, had people from all those shows on this show.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, all of them. I've had 2 people from Mr. Belvedere. I had Tracy Wells, who was the daughter, and Wesley. I had Bryce Beckham on, and then from Growing Pains, I had Tim O'Donnell, who show ran that show, and just the 10 of us, which I loved. My favorite spinoff. But on the cover here is a show that I have zero recollection of, and to the point where I'm like, this show's on the cover, and I don't remember even hearing about it.
I don't know the stars.
No, they don't look familiar at all. There's a bald guy who doesn't even look like Yul Brynner. I don't even know. It looks. I don't even know what other actor would look like. There's a John Stamos-y kind of looking guy.
Yeah.
And then Mary McCormick, whose name I've heard, but I couldn't tell you what she was in, and me not being able to is saying something. But it says, the reason I hype this up so much is it literally says the best new show of the year inside Murder One.
Yeah, it's Murder None for me.
Yeah. I don't know how long that lasted. I assume not long. Because
so it wasn't the best show.
Well, it may have been, but oftentimes Americans don't like the best things. They like
the thing is, it's like once you're in the industry, like you're able to see behind the curtain and to be like, oh, how much did they pay for that ad? So was it critically acclaimed?
You have the public relations cynicism of someone who's worked in Los Angeles for more than 6 months. But yeah, it's true. When I had someone from Give Me a Break on, who was the youngest daughter, but I had to know this was true, but for some reason it blew my mind. All of the time she was in like teen magazines or anything like that, all paid for, all set up. They weren't really just captured at the fair on camera.
Right.
You know what I mean? And for some reason, someone was like, "Oh, you obviously," but I don't know why that never occurred to me.
You never thought about it.
Never thought about it.
Well, I used to work at Cartoon Network.
Oh, nice. As did I.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, in London.
Atlanta?
In London.
Oh, I did it in Atlanta, but I worked for the licensing and the marketing department. And so I got to be in rooms with the creators, and the toy department would be in there and be like, we need you to add a car. We need you to add a mascot. And my mind was like blown because like as a kid, I loved like Gem and the Holograms and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. So Glitter and Gold Gem was a licensing thing, like a merchandising thing. I was just like, oh. So that's why I'm cynical, because
this wasn't an artistic choice.
Yeah,
to have
I was like,
a new vehicle.
I loved Glitter and Gold.
And weirdly,
no.
Not to continue talking about people I've had on the show, but I had Britta Phillips on, who is in the band Luna now, but she was the singing voice of Gem.
Oh my gosh.
And she went in and did all those songs in like 2 days and then never thought about it again. It's insane. Like when you look back at those 80s cartoons, which are just half-hour toy commercials, they got a little savvier about it by the time we were old enough to work for those companies.
Exactly.
It would be ridiculous. It would be like, oh, you need to introduce this new vehicle and say the name of it really, really explicitly several times, and it was just insane. So this issue, just before we even get to the listings, I was excited with how packed just pure 95 stuff was in here, because there's articles about Baywatch Nights getting a kickoff, which was pretty just an amazing, insane show. Paul Reiser, because Mad About You had just started. There's some amazing stuff, and Couch Critic is for Central Park West, which is another show I remember existing. I remember people saying it was a great show, and I never seen it. Don't remember how long it was on.
No, same. But see, here's the thing. Mad About You stood the test of time. I
agree. That's one of the shows that there's like 390 shows that I think are better than like the ones everybody loves that I think hold up a little better. And Mad About You, News Radio, Spin City, I think are my three, because they're character shows. They're kind of timeless. And then you also have a big thing about the OJ TV movies.
Oh God.
So you have Barbara Bosson? Yeah. Barbara Bosson playing Marcia Clark.
Oh, yeah.
In the OJ movie. And this is like only a year after the trial. So that was nuts. And then a huge article about Taya Leoni, who had a actually really funny sitcom called The Naked Truth, that also didn't do well. It was 2 seasons. They tried to revamp it, but she had this amazing comedic, she reminded me of like Lucille Ball, but not in the way that somebody was like doing a Lucille Ball impression. Like she had that kind of thing. Yeah. And then never really did comedies after. So this was an interesting year for sure. As well as Xena having kicked off this year, which is a whole thing. So let's dive in here. On Saturday night, what'd you do?
On Saturday night, let me pull this up.
Did you have siblings, or is it just you?
I did. I'm the youngest of 6.
Oh, wow.
But it's like 3 of them are older and didn't really grow up with them. So we didn't have to fight too much over the TV, which was nice.
That's ideal.
Yeah. Saturday nights. Okay. Well, this one's kind of interesting because Sabado Gigante was very big in our family, as it is for any Latinx family at that time. I personally hated it when I was little, but it would have to be on at some point.
Let's explain to people, like, because I actually used to watch it here.
You did?
Oh, yeah, because it was crazy. Like, you'd turn it on, and there'd be, like, women in bikinis and a guy churning butter, dancing. Like, I had no idea what was happening. And Sabado Gigante is big, or Giant Saturday, I guess is what it translates to. It would be on every Saturday night on, I think, Univision. It was, like, 6 hours long, right? It was
it was, like, the whole night. You would spend the whole night. I don't know how they did it, because it went on for a really long time.
Yeah, the host was, like, the same host from, like, the 60s until he died, I think. He was like,
Francisco.
Yeah, he was like 80 years old. And it would kind of be, I guess you'd call it a variety show, but it was like a talk show, game show.
It was everything.
Dance party.
It was everything. They would have musical guests. They would have comedians. They would have stunts. They would have trivia. I mean, it was just, it ran the gamut. It was so sexist. I hated the guy. Yeah. But it's like everybody would watch it.
He was like a leering, horny old man. Yeah. That was like his kind of like mixed with a game show host, kind of car salesman kind of thing going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that would definitely like be playing at some point. But then I would probably want to watch Martin.
Yes. This was the tail end of Martin on Fox. This was right before Martin Lawrence rocketed into a film career, which actually I think Bad Boys really launched him with Taya Leoni, who also kind of left TV because she had that there. I feel like this season of Martin, you could kind of tell it was that thing where the actor wants to be in movies, but they're contractually obligated for this season.
You can tell they're trying to like jump the shark with every episode.
Happened with Clooney on ER, or like the Moonlighting people. That was just like they have to be. It was like summer school for them. They're like, I already got to college, but I have to go do this so I can actually go. But this is not the best season of Martin because they're doing a lot of like stunt stuff, if I remember. And Martin and he got married
Yeah.
to Tisha Campbell,
Tisha
and
Campbell's.
who's amazing in
Yeah,
that show.
she's great. I mean,
For some
the
reason,
whole cast is pretty great.
oh yeah,
That was
Carl
a good
Penn.
ensemble.
I loved Living Single, which was on Thursdays in the same half hour as Martin before this. And it was, Martin suffered to me for being on after Living Single because the cast was so good on that show. I would just watch it and go, Tisha Campbell's too good for you, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not buying it. Were there any rules in your house of stuff? Like, was anything forbidden from being watched?
No, I think because, my mom, like, her English wasn't really up to par. We didn't speak English in the house. So I don't think that she would know what we were watching. My brother would watch Tales from the Crypt at night, and I would be horrified in the other room listening to the cackle, scared of the night.
Yeah.
But like nobody was kind of regulating that stuff.
And I will say there's probably nothing on this Saturday night that I can pick out of here that is probably less appropriate than Sabado Gigante anyway.
Exactly. That's the most. Although, I would also probably watch Howard the Duck.
I actually really like that movie.
I do too. It was so fun.
Leah Thompson's great. The band's cool.
But see, this is one of the things that, like, looking back, when you try to see, I'm like, how did they pitch this? And how did somebody say, green light? Yes, we're going to have a duck from outer space.
The first time I ever saw a condom was in Howard the Duck. I had no idea what it was. Well, it was a comic book. It was a huge Marvel comic in the 70s. And the comic was actually very subversive and weird. And Spielberg was a big fan of it. And so by the time he made the movie, though, it had become something totally different.
Yeah.
And the married couple who wrote that movie, they also wrote American Graffiti. But other than that, they wrote horror movies. And I think, and I haven't confirmed this, but I think the whole Dark Overlords thing in that movie is basically them dusting off an unrelated script they had. Because that is not. It did
get dark.
Oh, yeah.
Like, as a kid, I'm like, oh, this is so cute. And then it's like, oh, wait, what's happening?
There's old gods coming to reclaim the earth with their fire and death. Yeah, it's heavy stuff. Yeah, but that's a fun movie. And it's still... It never really found its cult audience, like, even ironically.
I know.
People hate it.
We should bring it back.
It's fun. I think you and I can be the people who can make Howard the Duck get its rightful place.
And then, let's see. I also feel like Look Who's Talking is a classic. I would want to flip between those two, which I would do that a lot.
Also, I remember seeing Look Who's Talking in the theater. And if you recall the opening with the sperm,
yep.
I was probably, 9. And I was like, what is this? There's a lot of kids in there. And I saw so many parents being like, because like, they don't know that's going to be the opening shot of the movie.
Right, that's true. And
then how do you explain what that is? Yeah,
you gotta have a real quick conversation. But it was really cool how it was done.
Oh yeah,
you could see, and it was like struggling to get in.
Yeah, the special effects were fantastic there.
I mean, for an 80s movie.
Oh yeah,
or a 90s movie, it was really good.
Yeah, it's very well done. I haven't seen that movie in years. I suspect that doesn't hold up. Anything else on the Saturday?
Saturday night also when they have the America's Most Wanted?
That's Sunday night.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, then that's definitely on my Sunday night watch.
Although, let me double check because it was Cops and then they may have moved America's Most Wanted. Yeah, no, it is Saturday night. So you are correct. This episode of America's Most Wanted, because it I always find it weird when they write what the episode is about on a show like America's Most Wanted. Like somebody's going to read it and go, that doesn't sound as good. Already. Yeah. Or like, oh, this one I have to watch. And it is, where am I? Here we go. Scheduled, just so you know, they may change. They don't want to get disappointed. Yeah. The search for a man who have alleged to have kidnapped and killed 2 Minnesota teens, subsequently forcing them into prostitution. Well, that's nice to watch.
That's must watch TV.
I can't believe I used to watch that. It used to
watch it too, but okay, here's a funny story. I used to be a crossing guard for school, which meant I got to leave like 15 minutes earlier out of class so that I can help the kids cross the street home. And I had to be there early in the morning to do that. And I swore one time, me and my friend, we saw this guy and we were like, we just saw him on America's Most Wanted. It is 1000% this person. And we started freaking out. We were like, do we call the police? Do we call the tip line? We're like 9 years old. We shouldn't be out there. We shouldn't have been watching America's Most Wanted. But if it was him, he got away with it. We didn't report it.
I kid you not. Every time this show comes up and someone watched it, I ask them if they ever thought they saw someone from the show in real life. And every time everyone did. It just terrified all children.
It really was.
And I can't imagine the insane tips they would get on that. Yeah. Like, I'm surprised they managed to get anybody based on the calls they would get on that thing.
I thought I read something that like some of these things weren't really true and that the host was trying to make crime seem like it was a big thing in America. Yeah.
That's possible. Like his story is very interesting. His son was kidnapped. It was a famous story. They made a movie about it called, I think Adam or something, TV movie, but his son was kidnapped and murdered. And then the cops didn't want to do anything about it. So he basically became like a vigilante. And got very famous from it. And then they decided to let him host this show. So he was like a real, like, I'm the real life Charles Bronson kind of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But that being said, as an actor, if you ever go back and rewatch those reenactments,
God,
they are amazingly bad. Like just, and it's so great though.
It really is.
They're so great. That's your whole Saturday?
I think so.
That is the Sabado Gigante. Do you remember watching anything when you were a kid in Venezuela?
I remembered watching like some cartoons.
Like American cartoons that were in Spanish, or were they
like they were Voltron was there in Spanish. There was one about this little bee that I would watch. Don't know the name. The Little Prince.
Oh yeah. So you're getting like French stuff and European stuff. That's interesting. Yeah. I'm always curious what shows are exported to other countries.
Chapulín Colorado that's the
guy in the red suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Chavo
thing.
del Ocho.
I would always watch that too. I'd be like, I don't know what this is. Like, I have no idea. And I love luchador movies, so I would watch all the El Santo and
nice.
Blue Demon and all those like monster weird 60s movies. Having no clue what they were saying, but didn't really need to. I followed it fair enough. So Sunday, what'd you do?
Sunday, let's see. I highlighted them. I mean, obviously, must watch Simpsons.
Yeah. That's the given on a Sunday.
That's the given. And then after that, Married with Children.
There's a show that doesn't hold up.
I mean, not at all.
Yeah.
But wow, were all of the actors, except for Bud, able to like kind of pivot and continue to have a career, you know? Like,
they just kept
who would have thought?
Successful.
Yeah. Ed O'Neill and she just did
Katie
Rebel.
Sagal.
Katie Sagal is like a genius.
Christina Applegate, like even Amanda Bierce, who was Marcy, she still directs television like all the time. It's kind of insane because that show was very popular, obviously, but super controversial intentionally. Like it was. But
looking back, I'm like, was it really that bad? Like, I guess maybe for the time, but I'm like, it's not that racy.
No, I feel like it kind of wanted to be all in the family for the 80s and 90s. Right. Which I think it kind of was, and you kind of need to amp stuff up a little more to get a rise out of people. But I also find a lot of people, much like with All in the Family, watched it wrong. Like, Al's a loser. Like, you're kind of supposed to be like, this is terrible. But when he has a thing like No Ma'am or is all like, hey, fat chicks, people are like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you're kind of supposed to be like, that guy's sad.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. But who knows? It was the first show on Fox to have banned episodes.
Oh, wow.
That the affiliates wouldn't air. And no one saw it for like almost 10 years. It just like got totally buried. But yeah, that was that was a weird show. And that was Fox's like tone setting show. And by 95, they were really trying to like move away from it.
From that. Yeah, because I feel like that was the first time like I remember seeing originals on Fox, because before it would be like kung fu movies and reruns of stuff, but like it wasn't any original, like The Simpsons and the Tracy Ullman Show. That was kind of like the beginning. I mean, I don't know, because that was when I was just starting to be in the US.
It's this, stop me if this is super boring, but I find this fascinating. Fox did a really amazing thing to become the fourth network. So it was like impossible to become a network. Like you just can't. So the idea they had was they went to all these different independent UHF stations all across the country and basically said, can we rent your Saturday and Sunday night? Wow. So the only two nights Fox was on when they started was Saturday and Sunday. And that's when we had Tracy Ullman Show, Duet, all those kind of shows, Married with Children, Werewolf, 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
And as those shows got more and more popular, Fox basically rented more nights until they had all 7 nights, and then they bought all those stations. So it was like a rent to own network.
That's kind of scrappy and awesome.
It's brilliant. It really was. And because the other networks wrote them off. They're like, yeah, channel 28, and you got 2 nights of TV. Okay. And, you know, by the time The Simpsons was beating Cosby in the ratings, they were like,
Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. Which is the same model that like UPN and CW did to lesser degree. But they totally were like, hey, this is exactly what Fox did. Let's do this. And I think it was the kind of thing where you can only kind of do that once.
Yeah.
Have it work.
Well, to that extent.
Yeah.
Good on them. Now I like them even more.
So you're watching those, and then what?
And then, I mean, I would also probably watch Airheads.
I do like that movie.
It's so dumb, but so funny. And it's Adam Sandler's in it, isn't he?
Yeah. Adam Sandler, Steve Buscemi, and Brendan Fraser.
Steve Buscemi, of course.
Steve Buscemi is just funny and great and everything. Like, and Brendan Fraser, I will say this. I've never seen a movie with Brendan Fraser in it that I have not enjoyed.
Yeah, it's tough that he's like not around that much anymore.
He kind of quit for a while, but he's on Doom Patrol. If you've seen that, he's amazing on it.
Is he? He's
so good in it, and it's just nice to see him and stuff. There's a show on too at 8:30 that I don't remember, called. It's got a full page ad almost where they're really promoting it, called To Something.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like the most Gen X slackery inspired, like attempt at a sitcom I can possibly imagine.
Let's talk about these ads because, Jesus, we've come a long way.
I don't even know where to start.
That Brotherly Love was around. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's mostly just like actor faces, close up.
Yep.
There's nothing tonally about the show that would give me any idea of what it is. It's really cheesy.
It is. It's like, why would this To Something ad is a perfect example. It's 2 actors I don't recognize sitting in like lawn chairs, just like drinking a beer. Like, I'm like, what is this show? Why would I watch this based on this ad?
Exactly. No reason.
Which apparently was what everybody thought, because I don't think anyone watched that show.
It didn't make it.
And it even in the debut little write-up, it even says Gen X right in like the first sentence. And it's based on a movie.
Never heard of the movie.
No, My Life in Turnaround. Oh, this is it. Portia de Rossi's in it.
Oh.
Huh. Now I feel like I have to check this out because this seems very strange. So these 2 guys. Oh, okay. I take back what I've said. They were the guys who wrote and starred in that movie called My Life's in Turnaround from 1993. And they managed to get this TV series made based on their movie.
Nice.
It still may be terrible. I don't know.
I did not watch My Life's a Turnaround, so.
No, I don't think it lasted long. And then we have a TV movie with Henry Winkler and Roma Downey called A Child is Missing, where Henry Winkler plays a backwoods bounty hunter.
Henry Winkler is the nicest guy ever, though.
I've heard that. I've never met him, but I've never heard a single bad thing about him.
I'm a part of a theater company here in LA, and we would do these one-day plays where basically within 24 hours, we would have a whole group of people and somebody would write the play, we would rehearse it and perform it the next day. And we would have celebrities also come in, and Henry Winkler came to one of them. He came to a table full of actors and started introducing himself around the table. And by the time he got back to me, he had already introduced himself to me. And he goes, "Hi, my name's Henry." And I was like, "I know, we just met when you were standing there." He's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." But was just like so gracious and kind to like come and say hello and welcome everyone, and in backstage with us, and I'm putting my makeup and he's like, "Wow, that's so cool."
Yeah, because he's one of those guys that's like, "Hey, we're all actors, we're just doing a job, we're all the same."
It was just lovely.
And I imagine a guy like that would love that concept, because that's not that dissimilar from being on a multicam sitcom.
Exactly.
You get the thing Monday, you're shooting it Thursday. You have like 2 more days in there, but not a lot.
Not a lot. Yeah. And a lot of times you're also getting rewrites right then and there.
Yes. I've been to many tapings where it's like, get the writers out here, swap the jokes out, try it again.
It's not working.
Oh, it's brutal. Oh, and then I forgot to mention, This Married with Children is the final episode. This is a final season, and it's the final episode. This is the one where the dog dies.
Oh, I remember that.
It was a big deal.
Yes.
Man. Yeah. Wow. I had a flashback.
Wow. That is also a flashback for me.
There's also like a I guess it looks like a show that I want to say it's like a sitcom version of 30 something called Misery Loves Company. It's about divorced dudes, and it guest stars Dennis Rodman.
Oh my, talk about stunt casting.
So this seems like they tried to make almost like a divorced dad's version of Golden Girls. It says she gets the house, the money, and the kids. They get each other. And it has this actor whose name I can't remember. He was on Dream On, and it looks like Stephen First. Wow.
Yeah.
Another show I have no recollection of.
Me neither.
There's so much of these. Why is Dennis Rodman in this?
We have many questions. I don't know if we'll ever get them answered.
Chris Maloney is in it too, which is weird. Anything else on Sunday?
No, Sundays were pretty you'd have to get ready for school. So you don't get to stay up too late.
That's the depressing night. I still get that now as an adult. Like Sunday night, I'm like, ugh.
Although HBO has kind of made Sundays a night to watch.
Yeah, because Sundays used to be 60 minutes. America's Funniest Home Videos, maybe.
Yeah, and then that's it.
That's
then you
it.
Go to bed.
It's an adult night.
A current affair, maybe.
Oh yeah, current affair. That weird sound effect that they had. Maury Povich. Monday, what'd you do?
Monday, definitely The Fresh Prince.
I do love that show.
It's between The Fresh Prince and Melrose Place.
That sounds like a book title. Or like some sort of weird description. There's a pitch right there. This again, speaking of those actors that had moved on to movies but were still on the show, Will Smith by 95. Yeah. I think he had just done 6 Degrees of Separation, maybe. And it was obviously pre-Independence Day, which would be 97, which I think was the big thing. But they were just starting to bubble up like, this guy's going to be a movie actor.
Yeah. I mean, that show had a lot of drama though, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
And behind the scenes.
Yeah. I mean, they replaced moms.
Yeah. I'm Vivian.
And that was, it seemed to be one of those shows you would sometimes get with sitcoms where someone believes themselves to be the star of the show who isn't the star of the show. And then that they don't want to adjust to that reality.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
This is my show. It's like, yeah, but what? Yeah. And that show was massive. It was a huge hit. And, rightfully, I think that show holds up pretty well. It's usually pretty funny.
So. I mean, the characters are so iconic. Alfonso Ribeiro is an incredible clown too. Just like his physicality. I mean, to this day, you're still doing the Carlton,
Oh, yeah. He was probably the most veteran actor in that show.
Yeah.
He'd done like 4 sitcoms before that. And
was he in Silver Spoons?
he was, yeah. He was Alfonso in
I can't
Silver
believe that
Spoons.
came out of my memory.
He also put out a home video on how to breakdance that same year.
Shut up.
And the dad from Fresh Prince, this fairly well-known, he did a ton of cartoon voiceover, and he was the voice of Shredder on the Ninja Turtles.
Shut up. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, my nephews loved the Ninja Turtles.
Now when you watch Ninja Turtles, you just picture him.
I was going to picture him.
It's a whole different show. Then what'd you do?
Well, the thing with Melrose Place is like, I know it's so trashy, but it was just so fun. It was so aspirational.
Yeah, I think Melrose Place knew it was so trashy, though. That was the kind of magic of it.
Well, it just started it was very like telenovela. Because I don't know, but just the stuff that would happen sometimes, like somebody got burned and their hair it's
got
like
the wig and
the reveal, and it's like, what am I watching? I probably should not have been watching all that, but
it was I mean, that Aaron Spelling thing, he pushed that nighttime soap insanity almost single-handedly here, and that show was genuinely influenced by telenovelas, which I think were influenced by his original run of shows in the 70s. Like they kind of fed, yeah, like it just fed on each other. It was like, we're gonna take that, make it crazier. We're gonna take it back and out crazy you.
Yeah,
and yeah, that show is, to your point, yeah, aspirational as well, because everyone's like, yeah, I want to move to LA and live in a cool apartment with all these hot people.
Plus, it felt like the older version of like 90210, which obviously, because it's Aaron Spelling. But I used to have 90210 t-shirt. Like I was in that world,
I still have the sleeping bag somewhere in my house.
No, you don't.
Oh yeah, I think it's upstairs somewhere. But yeah, it was, and I might be wrong, but I believe they either did a backdoor pilot or connected Melrose Place to 90210 by having, I think it was Jenny Garth's character move into that apartment at first.
Oh, I didn't know that. Maybe I stopped watching.
I think that's how they introduced
it. Dated somebody older because she.
Oh yeah, she was like that. Did you think LA would be like that when you first moved there?
I remember first coming to LA, not to live here, but on a trip and walking on Melrose and being like, this is it. You know what I mean? Just like so viscerally tied to watching that show. But no, it's nothing like that.
No, not at all. I grew up in a town called Melrose, and there was a dry cleaner that was run by these Asian people, and it was called Melrose Place Dry Cleaning. And they never heard of this show and would constantly get people being like, hey, is Heather Locklear? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking
Heather
about.
Locklear.
Yeah. Speaking of Facts of Life, we mentioned earlier, they tried to, there's a show called Can't Hurry Love that they debuted that night, which was Nancy McKeon trying to do a sitcom again after 5 or 6 years off. And it didn't quite
didn't
go
do well, did it?
Yeah, she had done a ton. She went into the route of like the Meredith Baxter Birney route of the Lifetime ripped from the headlines movies, and then decided to come back to comedy, which she's very good at. And people weren't having it. Weren't having it.
She is now.
I
feel like this Nickelodeon block right now with I Dream of Jeannie, I Love Lucy, and Bewitched is like, that could be my whole night.
Nick at Night was amazing.
I mean, just like even Mary Tyler Moore, just like women comedian block. I love it.
Even though it's all shows from the 50s and 60s.
I know.
Which is kind of insane.
But like even to this day, I just love, like sometimes I'll, because I like comedy a lot. So I'll go and like the Golden Girls is a masterclass in comedic acting. But even I Love Lucy, like her physicality and all that stuff, I like to go back and just watch it. So
the crazy thing too about those shows is at least 3 of them. So Bewitched, Lucy, and Mary Tyler Moore, they all had to be their own producer to get those shows made. So they all had their own production companies. Elizabeth Montgomery, Desilu with her husband, and Mary Tyler Moore, like they were the business force behind those shows, which
is even more inspiring.
That's nuts. Like a guy didn't have to do that. They'd have to, all right, I want my own show, so I have to start a studio and a production company.
Yeah. That's
which
insane.
is why they stood out, which was great.
And
There's-
like deep down inside, I always wanted to have like witch powers. So like I'm there for I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched, you know. I just be like, what if I could do my nose and magic would happen?
Yeah, I think we all wanted that and an Uncle Arthur to come and be crazy. Yeah, I'm a if I have to pick Bewitched versus Genie, I'm going Bewitched.
Bewitched.
Yeah,
for sure.
Elizabeth Montgomery was
I Dream of
just,
Jeannie. She was a little ditzy for me.
Yeah, it didn't have the like. I feel like Bewitched was like more anarchy. Like it was just crazier because you have Endora.
And you could tell like she ran the house.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
She was way smarter than her husband.
Yeah, he was. No one liked either one of them.
That was another replacement that didn't work.
That no one even people probably didn't even notice. Then what'd you do?
I do love Whose Line Is It Anyways?
That show influenced so many people in our age group to like get into doing performance.
It's just, I mean, it makes me so happy just to see like when they would just have to do songs out of nowhere. I mean, it's such masters, all of them.
They make it look very easy.
Yeah.
Which means I've seen a lot of really bad improv shows in my time.
No, trust me. Even when I took an improv class and I was like, oh my God, their minds are so quick.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Proops is like maybe the smartest person I've ever met. Like just the way that they're able to pull that stuff out. And it's not cheating either. Like if you see it live, you know, those televised shows were not like 8-hour tapings that they cut down the best 20 minutes of. Like they're coming out with that stuff in real time, and it's pretty fantastic.
Did you see the Middle Ditch and Schwartz?
Yes. Yep.
So good.
Yeah. Ben's amazing. Like he's just he's so funny. I've done a few shows with him, and it's fun to see how long you can go with some bullshit thing to just trying to like out dry each other. I guess, you know, because he's just so good at it. And I got to hold his Emmy that he won for writing for the Oscars.
Nice.
Which is a nice, odd reality in on itself. Also that night, I want to mention before we move on to Tuesday, the TV series Forever Night is premiering that night. There's a huge full page ad. USA Network picked up Forever Night. It was a CBS show, I believe. And when it was on CBS, it starred Rick Springfield as a vampire detective.
This is the worst ad I've ever seen.
It is terrible. And it became weirdly like kind of a hit among the people who watched like Highlander the series and Silk Stockings.
Yeah, that was way out of my...
USA Network picked up a lot of canceled shows to make their own versions of. That was one of them. And then they sprung for a full page ad.
Listen,
Tuesday, what'd you do? They did. They're like, Nick Knight's this is it, man. We're going to be our ticket.
You know, Roseanne, which sucks now that we kind of see how insane she was, because again, somebody else who was like at the forefront of comedy for women. But
she was insane then.
I mean,
it's that show. I always say that show was like the last blue collar show, in that the family's sense of humor was a necessity to get through how horrible their life was, which I really identified with. And the show had stakes. There was no aspiration in Roseanne. It was, we might lose the house. We lost our jobs. Where the business has gone under, you know, it was heavy stuff, but they make jokes to get through it.
Deal. Yeah.
And if you look at the writers on that show, they basically set the tone for comedy for the next 2 decades. You had Judd Apatow, Joss Whedon, Dan Harmon worked a little bit on there, Laura Keitlinger, like just this crazy room of people that were writing on that show. But it is hard to watch when you're like, oh, she's the worst. Have you watched The Conners?
I've watched a couple of stuff. I mean, Laura Metcalf is just an incredible actor and so funny. So I definitely love watching her. But, you know, I with streaming now, like the level of shows that are in streaming are more kind of like what I gravitate towards. And that's also another thing that's really stark. It's like to watch the limited amount of choices that you have at this time versus like the oversaturation of choices that we have now.
In some ways, I think it was good because I think we probably watched a lot of stuff that we wouldn't have watched if we didn't have to.
Right.
You know what I mean? We got exposed to a lot of stuff that we probably ended up liking a lot that we never would have checked out otherwise because we had no choice.
Yeah.
And sometimes even with streaming, I'm like, I can watch anything I want. I don't know what to watch. Like I need someone to just be like, this is it. This is what you're having.
Yeah, that's when you're like, what's the latest release show that I need to watch and keep up with the status quo?
Fine, I'll watch the TV version of The Client. With Jo Beth Williams and John Hurd. I don't remember that being a TV series.
No, but Spies Like Us, isn't that
John Landis, Dan Aykroyd, and Chevy Chase? Yep.
Yes.
That movie's nuts. That's at the height of their like we can do whatever we want powers.
Did it make sense?
Yeah, it's very Cold War. It's very silly. You know, it's crazy Dan Aykroyd and smug prick Chevy Chase. You know, it's like everything you want. Fletch Chevy Chase and Ghostbusters Dan Aykroyd. Basically, it's kind of everything you want there. And John Landis directing, so it's got his stamp on it. Anything else there?
The Burbs.
I love The Burbs.
Watch The Burbs for sure.
Have you ever been on the Universal backlot?
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to the Burbs neighborhood?
No.
So the neighborhood.
I feel like I took the tour.
The neighborhood where like the Munsters house was and like Desperate Housewives shot. Mm-hmm. That's the Burbs neighborhood.
Oh wow!
Because when you watch that movie, it looks so familiar.
Yeah.
Because it's the suburban neighborhood we all watched and everything, which I think was Leave It to Beaver as well. Like it was a ton of shows. That movie is just great. I think I watch that movie at least once a year.
Oh, really?
It's so funny and weird.
I feel like this is one that I should go back to. Because I mean, I just remember like liking Tom Hanks, but like this is when I'm still learning, English is like, so I feel like I probably missed a ton of jokes.
Oh, I know you did. Like I missed a ton of jokes just as a kid, not understand, like Carrie Fisher is in it, Bruce Dern, wow. Brother Theodore, like it's awesome. That movie's perfect.
So I'm going to put that on my list.
Yeah. And then you have to shoot me an email and let me know your reaction because I'm dying to know what you thought of it.
For sure.
There's a lot of TV movies on this week, I noticed.
Yeah.
Like this one, Stolen Innocence, starring Tracy Gold, Bess Armstrong, and Thomas Calabro.
Tracy Gold.
She ran away from home and into the arms of a dangerous man. Now her family want her back alive. Stolen Innocence, inspired by a true story. And before that, on the same night, there's like another one called Legacy of Sin with Bonnie Bedelia and Neil Patrick Harris. 2 marriages, 2 murders, countless lies. Only one man could stop her son.
So dramatic. Yeah, these movies, they don't make them like that anymore, do they?
No, I think a lot of these things now
Lifetime movies? Are they Lifetime now?
A little bit. I feel like a lot of these now are like they just do a true crime documentary about it.
That's true.
Instead of having Neil Patrick Harris play the person, which I think is, that's a shame.
That is a shame, but hey.
I'd like to see that. And then Tuesday night, the big show, best show on television, Murder One is on.
Murder One, God.
The ad's real bad.
The ad is horrible. They're
it's
just
real
like,
bad. It's
so disjointed. Did a night of passion turn into cold-blooded murder?
We got a guy who's like, I can't tell if he's on a motorcycle, even though it's like from the neck up, but he looks like he should be on a motorcycle.
Yeah, it's the same guy in the cover.
Then you got this woman who's like on her back looking all like, oh.
That's like the quintessential like sexy camera pose.
Yeah, like it's sort of the Marilyn Monroe kind of like.
Upside down.
And then the bald guy looking just really stern.
Yeah. He looks like the Supreme Court Justice.
Yes.
Portrait.
I would just be like, is this 3 different shows? Is this an anthology?
Exactly. It doesn't look together at all.
It looks like they use stock photos to do a temporary ad. And then we're like, when we get the real photos, we'll put them in later.
But like that's all of the ads are like stock photos of the actors when they first got hired. And they're like, let's just do a photo shoot. And now they just copy and paste it.
Yeah. You're driving a convertible. Now you're on the beach. You're in a fountain. It's a little crazy now. It's like, so Wednesday, what'd you do?
Wednesday, Beverly Hills 90210, of course.
Did you watch the reboot of that?
I did not. I didn't want it to be ruined.
I didn't watch it either, but from there were two reboots. There was like the new version that was like the serious one, but I guess the one they did semi recently, that it was like almost like a Larry Sanders thing. Like they were playing themselves, playing the characters, and there was like a lot of weird behind this. Like it was kind of a meta version, which obviously I still haven't watched, but that sounds intriguing to me.
What is it on?
It was on one of the streaming services. I think it might have been Netflix, but I don't remember. But it sounded fascinating.
It's just such a like treasure of my childhood that I just feel like I don't want to disrupt it. I just want to remember it as it was.
I feel like if you're gonna revisit, doing it in that weird meta way is a good route to go.
Probably the best way.
Because I'm trying to think of any updated TV shows where you've seen the characters 20 years later where I've been like, oh, thank God. That's where I wanted them to be.
Yet.
Yeah. I just like, no, I feel sad
it's
now.
kind of like what I liked about the Friends reunion, and that they said, will they ever come back? And it's like, they did such a great job of wrapping it up. That's like, we don't want to unravel that. Like,
yeah, it's weird. It's weird to see. There was a phenomenon in the 80s and early 90s where they would do reunion, like they did a Mary Tyler Moore reunion show, and it would be like a one-off special, but it was them as the characters, like a scripted thing, and it was weird. It was like, I don't need to see this. I didn't go to my high school reunion for a reason.
I mean, after that, I know I would definitely watch Party of Five. That
show.
See, Fox had me.
They knew that this is when they were figuring out who their audience was.
Yeah.
It was before we discovered tweens, but they kind of had discovered tweens.
Yeah.
And they were like, these teenage girls, they got money. They'll watch these things. And they really started programming for it. And Party of Five, that show was massive. And I feel like no one remembers it now.
Well, they did the reboot, and I don't know how well that did.
Oh, I didn't even remember they did a reboot.
Yeah. I think like last year, the year before.
Was it a remake, or was it like the same characters?
It was a remake. So they did it with a Latinx family. But I can't remember what network it was on. It wasn't on network. It was streaming.
They went the one day at a time route with that one. They were like, this will totally, because the premise of that show was weird. Like the parents died and the older brother was 18. So he became the guardian.
They left a restaurant to the kids too. So they like managed a restaurant, but yeah, he started taking care of the kids.
But he was an alcoholic.
Yeah, there was Matthew Fox.
Yes. Who was huge. Like he was on every magazine cover.
Oh, total crush on him and the younger brother. I can't remember his name now, but
Scott Wolf.
Matthew Fox. Scott Wolf.
Fox and Wolf. Look, I'm casting this show.
You're only going to get
only want animal name actors.
Who's on the short list?
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox.
Yep. And Wolf, you got someone named Dog, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Bird.
I mean, those were people that were definitely on my wall.
But Lacey Chablet, was that the younger sister?
She was in Mean Girls.
Yeah, and she's in all those Lifetime movies now.
Yeah.
All the Christmas movies. Like she's the one from that cast that I see the most on television still.
Good for her. Although, Matthew Fox doesn't really need to work with Lost and...
Oh, that's right. He was on Lost.
He was in Lost.
Yeah. He's crazy like a fox there. So what'd you do Thursday?
Let me see. Sorry. I just looked at the full page ad. God, he looks good.
Who is it?
Matthew
Oh,
Fox. Tonight, Charlie's torn between a child from his past and his future with Kirsten.
yeah. This ad looks like a 90s engagement ad for like the beers. He's all like smolder with the scruff and he's like behind her doing like the prom pose.
Hugging her. Yeah, it's definitely a prom photo.
But then her face, she's all like, oh, I can't
She's in
contain myself.
ecstasy,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's just like, yeah.
It's it's like wedding, also Danielle Steele.
My favorite thing about this ad, though, other than the weirdly inappropriate picture of like a child who doesn't give a shit, the kid's face is just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he's over it.
On the bottom right, this ad is sponsored by Got Milk.
Got milk.
So
You mean to see who's got milk?
it looks like this is an ad for milk.
Well, at least they're being upfront about it, you know?
True.
Like, how many ads are being sponsored now by conglomerates?
It is weird in a show. I can't believe there are people who don't notice it when you're watching a show and they'll be like, are we going to get there on time? And they're like, yeah, I have this new Ford hybrid. They shoehorn that into shows. And I'm like, there are people who don't notice this? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Thursday night. Well, I mean, Friends and Living Single, I would have to go back and forth.
I always went Living Single.
You did?
As a kid, I was so mad at Friends. I was like, they've ripped off Living Single. And everyone's talking about it. And no one is talking. I mean, I grew up in a super white suburban Boston high school. So, they weren't exactly the target audience for Living Single. But I'm like, but it's just a better show. Like, they're nicer people. It's
veteran.
Yeah. Heavy D's on it sometimes. Kim Fields is amazing on that show.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, that show's great. That's a show I'd rather see a reunion of.
That's true. I want to see where they are.
Because Queen Latifah is doing The Equalizer now.
Yeah.
I think everyone is still working. Kim Fields has a new sitcom. I don't
remember Single Guy at all.
Oh, that show. That was a show starring Jonathan Silverman from Weekend at Bernie's and Brighton Beach Memoirs. And is an okay show. It was created by Brad Hall, who's Julia Louis-Dreyfus's husband.
Okay.
And so I'm not saying there was some nepotism here, but Seinfeld was very popular. And The Single Guy was the quintessential show that aired between Seinfeld and Friends and really benefited from the fact that people don't like to change the channel.
Yeah.
And it was okay. It had a lot of great actresses were on that show. Ileana Douglas was on it for a long time. Olivia Dabo had a reoccurring thing on that, but it's just not. It's not great. I don't
remember it at all.
It's not great.
No.
It's that kind of show. It's a show you would watch, and then immediately after it ended, if I asked you about it, you'd be like, "What did we watch?"
Yeah,
it's
that
just kind of there. Yeah. Then what'd you do?
Let me see if there's anything in the premium channels. No. I mean, obviously 9:00 you would watch Seinfeld, but I don't know. I don't really feel like Thursday nights was for me.
No, I didn't really like Caroline in the City.
I didn't either.
It's just for some reason these shows about, even though they were neurotic or whatever, they're like, oh, I'm so upset. I was like, these all seem like shows about rich people in New York.
Exactly.
I can't, there's nothing I can latch onto in these shows.
It's yeah.
Shows what I know. People enjoy them. Final night of the week, Friday. What'd you do?
Friday, TGIF.
Tail end of TGIF, I think.
Tail F, yeah.
What was the lineup we have here?
Remember Dweebs?
Dweebs was very short-lived. It was actually a pretty fun show.
What was it about, obviously, besides Dweebs?
It was basically sort of at the very beginning of the dot-com boom. So it was about like a startup.
Oh, cool. Like Silicon Valley?
Yes. And Peter Scolari was in it from Newhart. And it was a fun, weird show. And then after it was the Bonnie Hunt show, and I love Bonnie. Weirdly, to what we were talking about earlier with Lucy and all those female comedic actors, Bonnie was the first woman to ever write, produce, and star in her own show. And that was this year.
Wow.
So it wasn't until 1995 that happened. And this show was really fun because she comes from Second City. She was an improv person.
Yeah.
And the premise of this show was it was kind of like a Murphy Brown, like workplace sitcom. She was a new reporter, but the news segments would be actual news segments. Like she'd go out and do like a field piece, like an improv field piece. And she told me when I had her on, she showed up for the first day of work and had here's 22 episodes. I wrote them. And they're like, what do you mean you wrote? She's like, it's the show. You greenlit the show. It's my show. I wrote all the episodes. And they're like, that's not how it works.
Wow.
And she's like, well, what do you mean? So she had to hire a writer's room. And they're like, we don't care. You need a writer's room. They don't have to write anything. Fine. And so she told me she talked to Carl Reiner and he was like, well, just find writers you like that need to get in the union or need a gig and hire them and tell them there's nothing to write, but you're going to get paid. And that's what she did.
What's amazing. I never knew that. Now this is when I wasn't watching TV. So none of these are, so I really would love to check it out.
It's great. Like her stuff is amazing. She also told Lorne Michaels to screw off twice when he asked me on SNL because she's just the best. I kept her nursing license the whole time that she was doing this. Yeah. And then we got a Joey Lawrence world premiere movie.
No.
I want to watch this tonight because this ad, it's on NBC. It's an NBC Friday night world premiere movie. Joey Lawrence in Prince for a Day. This is one of those movies. It's The Prince and the Pauper. He plays two characters that look the same and swap places. And one of them's a pizza boy and one of them's a rock star.
This is such a quintessential though, like movie trope.
Oh yeah.
It's like, we find each other, you're twins, let's switch our lives.
You look just like me. Really? Yeah, this looks so...
Look at that eyebrow raise.
Oh, yeah, he's got the rock star eyebrow going. Like,
I used to be in love with Joey Lawrence.
Did you buy his Nothing My Love Can't Do For You Baby single?
No, but I would watch Blossom and all that, which oddly enough, which is why it surprises me that I didn't know that his three brothers and that him and the two brothers had a whole sitcom spinoff. That
was, I think, after our time. Like we were definitely too old for that show, I think. Yeah. But like I knew him from Give Me a Break and from Silver Spoons and like all that TV did. But I remember when they premiered that song, like they made a big deal out of it. They showed the music video as part of the episode of Blossom. And
I did see that, but I didn't go buy it.
Yeah. Weirdly people did. But now I need to see this movie because it just looks.
It does. If you find it, you let me know where it's playing.
It's got to be on YouTube. Anything else on Friday?
Let's see. I don't even know what Picket Fences is.
Picket Fences is great.
What is that about?
It was David E. Kelly, I believe. And after Twin Peaks was big, all the networks were like, you got anything weird? So they just greenlit all these shows about like weird small town, and they would kind of Trojan horse them. So Picket Fences got greenlit in the sort of wake of that, and it started as a show about like a murder in a small town, but then it just became this amazing ensemble show about just a strange little American town, and it's got an amazing cast. It's just really good and quirky and weird. And the only thing I think on streaming is the first season, and I think it went for 4 seasons.
Oh, wow.
But it was one of those shows that if you encountered someone who saw it, they would become your new best friend. Like, you watch Picket Fences? It was on at 10 o'clock on a Friday. Like, no one really watched it.
Yeah, no one's watching. Yeah.
Somehow stayed on, though. I think it was because David E. Kelly, was just so powerful at that point where they're like, just let him have this one, where it's like, but I like this show. And they're like, fine, you're making us money on your 4 other shows.
I'm just like so impressed by your encyclopedia knowledge of like TV history. It's so awesome because I feel like, now as an actor, I feel like I know so much more about the landscape of TV. But like how ignorant, was I back then?
It's not useful.
But it is. I think it is.
I mean, I find it interesting, but it's this is like, I always say this is like my sports, where I'm like,
Yeah.
I got the stats and
I love that.
I like the context of this stuff. Like Picket Fences, Kathy Baker was on it right after she won an Emmy,
Right.
and was nominated for an Oscar. Like it was one of the first shows I remember where like movie people were on this TV show,
And that's pretty big.
that was a huge deal. And the X-Files that night has Jack Black in it and Giovanni
God.
Ribisi, which was kind of a big deal show.
Was that their like first TV stuff?
I think so. Yeah, it was definitely Jack Black's first TV thing. Giovanni Ribisi had been on My Two Dads, where he went by
And probably
Vonnie.
like, wasn't he on Growing Pains? Or
He
did I make that
may
up?
have been. I think you're right. He might have been one of Ben's friends. He was definitely one of those kid actors that showed up in a lot of things that you would be surprised by. But that's a pretty good night. And then American Gothic was on too, which also fell into that category.
Yeah, see, I don't remember that one either.
So that was produced by Sam Raimi. And Sam Raimi and Sean Cassidy produced it, the former teen idol Sean Cassidy. And it was very Stephen King influenced, but not an adaptation of Stephen King. It was basically about this small town where the sheriff may be the devil, but you don't really know. And it was very good. It only went one season. It ended on a cliffhanger.
Who's the boy on there on
The
the cover?
boy I don't recognize.
Kind of looks like a young River Phoenix.
It does look like, it looks like him in Stand By Me.
Mm-hmm.
Which is probably on purpose because this show was so Stephen King influenced without being a Stephen King show at all. And it stars, why am I forgetting his name? He's in everything. He's a great actor. He played Lumberg in Office Space. I can't remember his name. No, he's on The Good Fight and everything else. But he played this. He was in a show called
Devil.
He was the devil guy. And he was perfect because he's so good at being charming, but he can be really menacing. And you like him, but you're like, I don't know what this guy's deal is. And it was, just a great show that was a few years, I think, ahead of its time. Like, I think if that had been, there's a show you could reboot, I think.
This is a streaming show.
Absolutely. Which is so weird to me that those one season shows, almost none of them they bother to stream.
Yeah.
I'm like, but you own them. You can't release them really in any other way. Like, isn't that the perfect thing to put on the streaming?
Has a limited series.
Yeah, but no.
Hey, you should be a network exec.
I know.
Start pitching those ideas.
I should really just be in charge and make that show that's between Fresh Prince and Melrose Place. Anything else on Friday? Or was that your whole week?
I think that's my whole week.
Is there anything you've been revisiting from your childhood or watching in lockdown or like comfort shows or anything like that?
It's mostly the 80s movies that sometimes I'll go and take a look and just see how they hold up. I would like to, like, at the beginning of quarantine, and I kind of stopped, but I did start watching Golden Girls from the beginning. Just again, the choreography in the kitchen itself, when you think about it as a working actor now, I'm like, oh my God, they hit so many marks, continuity. Like,
have you done a multicam sitcom? Because you've done a few TV shows.
I did a scene with Keira Sedgwick for Call Your Mother.
Oh, okay.
And that was my first sitcom. And, I'm theater trained, so I know what it's like to be in the theater. But yeah, it just made me think of that because, she's coming to me. I have some business and I had to time and feel when she's coming so that I can put down the phone at the right time and be there, So there was like so much choreography that now when I watch these shows, I'm like, wow.
They make it look so easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because multicam sitcom acting is like the hardest parts about theater mixed with the hardest parts about film and not quite like either. Like, it's just a weird thing that's its own
and it moves fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and jokes were being rewritten and she would be like, try this line instead. And the button that aired was something that I pitched, which I was like, how amazing that they let me try it.
Yeah.
And then that's what ended up being edited.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. Well, great. This has been so fun to talk to you.
Yay!
I've enjoyed
I
revisiting
learned
95.
so much.
You have a list of homework of things you need to watch now. I'm going to go back and
Definitely the Prince Joey
Prince and the
Lawrence.
Pizza Guy, whatever that's called there. That hidden gem that that's going to be the lockdown gem that everyone's going to be like, I can't believe we slept on the Prince and the Pizza Guy, whatever it is.
And it's just so great to like revisit the ads of this time. You know, I studied advertising as an undergrad. So I'm like, wow, like the taglines, you know, the Virginia Slims lead the way. Yeah. Even in 3-inch heels. Like you're trying to be progressive, but then you're not.
Yeah. What a weird time this was, where it was like a false sense of progressiveness. That was
female independence.
It was what I would describe as woman with a cigar. Like that was, every ad was like, yeah, I'm a hot lady, but hey, look, I can hang with the guys. Like every ad was that. It was like,
Have you seen this documentary called The Century of Self?
No.
Okay, they have the full version on YouTube, but it basically talks about like the beginning of advertising and PR campaigns, and the cigarette was the first PR campaign because they were trying to make cigarettes accessible or like wanted
glamorous
by women.
Yeah,
and they tied it to the suffragist movement and called them freedom torches. And it picked up, and it was like a sense. It was like the symbolism for freedom of your rights. It's incredible.
It's so evil that is a thing people can like reverse engineer and to be like, I know what we'll do.
Oh, 1000%. And the guy who started it all, I think his name is Edward something, but I'm just like, he's an evil genius. Like, this was the beginning of like manipulating people through advertising.
Yeah, it's
because before it was just like, here are the facts and here are the plus signs and why maybe the benefits.
Do you need a thing? We have them. Maybe buy it. Yeah. Instead of like you were selling something a market existed for versus creating a market for something that people didn't need.
Yeah.
That was the shift. And when I go back as someone who loves like television history and sort of cultural studies stuff, if you look at shows like Leave It to Beaver and a lot of the shows from that era, they intentionally introduced concepts in those shows like credit cards and layaway and these sort of consumer post-war stuff that they literally, like the banks came to the networks and were like, we have this thing called layaway. Can you do an episode about it?
Wow.
To get people to think of these things as like a normal thing, and mortgages and it's
to like introduce that. Yeah, no, his name is Edward Bernays.
Okay, I've heard that before.
And it's called The Century of Self. But yeah, it's about using some of Freud's work to get into the psychoanalysis and then basically use it against us. To this day is what's still happening.
Psyops. It's money is the root of all evil. Yep. Yeah. Cool. Well, I will check that out and hopefully be immune to advertising after that and continue not smoking. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say, I love your Care Bear in the background.
Oh, thank you. I'm a big.
It's on the other side.
Yeah, big grumpy bear fan.
I had a birthday bear.
Oh, they have a new birthday bear.
No, I had the yellow, the
original.
One
Yeah. You can re-get him. Get him again. It'll make you happy.
No, I had so my mom washed it, and my dad put it to dry on the heater, on the radiator,
melted.
And it burned.
Oh no.
And so I'm traumatized by my old Care Bear, but
it looks like he had a birthday and the candles got out of hand.
Yeah. And that was like when I lived in Venezuela, my mom had it shipped from the US. So it was like an heirloom to me. And then it got burned.
Oh, well, that's terrible. I'm sorry.
But it's nice to see.
Yeah. Grumpy bears. I do collect grumpy bears. I have quite a few. He's one of my favorites. He's like my mascot. I even have the
not like Eeyore, but
we got a Pez guy. Yeah, there's a ton of them in here. Like normal grown men do. Thank you so much.
All right, have a good one.
there you go. That's Anna. She's great. You're great. We're all great. This year's getting better. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Let me know how you're doing. tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com, ken@icanread.com, at TV Guidance, at Kenneth W. Reed. I like hearing that you guys are well, or that you're not well. If you need to chat, feel free to reach out. But I'll be here next week for a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
Did a night of passion turn into cold-blooded murder?